So I was shocked to learn that Well-Read Black Girl, a beautiful book, was listed as a banned book this week. And the notice that was documented by PEN America, an organization that tracks and reports on banned books in the US, was reshared on the Well-Read Black Girl Instagram page. So I was taken aback by this news because I read the book last year, Well-Read Black Girl by Glory Edim, and found it to be an extremely motivating and inspiring book. Reflecting on this really made me angry because it feels like an attack on my identity personally as a Black woman. And books like this, it's just shocking to me when books like this are pushed down instead of being elevated. And so I thought that I would talk about this a little bit because, one, I really liked Well-Read Black Girl, and I really liked the message that was shared, which made me also interested in Glory Edim's memoir that was published late 2024, and that was my first read for 2025. And her memoir is called Gather Me, and I thought I'd talk about that a little bit along with Well-Read Black Girl, because they both really help to accomplish two things. One is to share a message about the influence of books in their ability to change and to transform and to help to connect, as well as, to share a glimpse into perhaps a different type of identity. And that is, the identity of, a Black woman. So I did a little bit of reading on the impact of book bans on both authors and the books that are banned themselves. And in addition to the direct impact of a book ban on the book itself, which can lead to lower book sales, there can also be cascading impacts on the author's entire catalog. These book bans might impact the sale of the book that is banned itself, but also other books by that author. And then there's also the psychological impact. And this is one that I hadn't considered before. And that is, for an author whose book has been banned, they may be less likely to put in that investment to continue to produce works of that type. I think that this is a particularly damaging impact or effect of a book ban, especially on one that really is targeting a book that serves a niche that is severely underrepresented, both for the members of that group themselves and then also for others that embrace and support another portion of the population that they may not personally identify with, but that they have some compassion or empathy for. So a couple of years ago, I stumbled upon the Well-Read Black Girl book on Goodreads when looking for the next book that I wanted to read. And I added it to my TBR. I liked the cover. It was pretty simple, but still conveyed that this was a book for me that I needed to take a look at. And I also ended up following Well-Read Black Girl on Instagram. They have a really beautiful community and post some really encouraging messages and book recommendations that are well worth a follow. So I'll throw that out there as well. But briefly, Well-Read Black Girl is a collection of essays and conversations that are written up with Black women and authors that really asks the question, when did you first see yourself in literature? And it seems like a simple enough question, but it is really interesting to see the responses of these various authors and women that identify as, women of color, to share their experiences of seeing themselves in books. And the group of women that were responding to the question were very diverse in that they represented different ages, they came from different places, and they had different experiences in terms of exposure to books, the households that they grew up in, and the way that they identified was also very intersectional. Being a Black woman was part of their identity, but there are other parts of our identity that contribute to the experiences that we have in our lives, and I thought that the book represented those extremely well. In addition to hearing the stories about when various Black women first saw themselves in literature, and again, this is some prominent and some lesser well-known Black women, the readers of Well Read Black Girl are also given several lists of writing by Black women. These lists include novels by Black women, books on Black feminism, books about Black girlhood and friendship, science fiction and fantasy books by Black women, plays by Black women, and poetry by Black women. These serve as excellent guides for those that want to dive deeper into exploring the works and the contributions to literature by Black women. The first book that I finished in 2025 was Gather Me by Glory Edim. In this beautiful memoir, Glory shows how her life is connected through a thread of books, and how these books have helped her to get through the various chapters in her life. In the book, Glory shares about growing up as the child of immigrant parents. She talks about the complex relationships that existed after her parents' divorce, and that led to a situation where basically she was separated from one of her parents by, continents. She talks about romantic relationships and partnerships, as well as responding to mental illness, handling economic setbacks, and motherhood, and then ultimately forging a path to become a thought leader in the space of literary identity. So I listened to the audiobook, and it is read by Glory Edim herself. And for me personally, I love hearing authors read their memoirs. You don't have to guess how they intended the words to be read when they penned the words. You actually get to hear them and their inflections and the joys and the sorrows and all of the things, because you hear their inflections and you hear their own telling of the story. And one thing when listening to Gather Me, I really heard the joy in Glory's voice. She just has a really engaging and very accessible quality that she invites readers and listeners into. So yeah, it's exactly the way that I imagine Glory to be, just down to earth, relatable, vulnerable, and committed, and that really came across in her audiobook. So in addition to the stories that Glory tells about her life, she frames each chapter with a selection of books that provided some sort of guidance or inspiration or lesson to her in her life. So in very much the same way that Well Read Black Girl invites you to experience different lists of books that were written by Black women, Gather Me introduces the reader to a number of books that really served as guideposts to Glory and her life, some of which were written by Black women and some that were not. And so she connects readers to different books in this way. And this is really a treat to me because as much as this is a book about her life, it's also a book about books. And so really readers are left with even more recommendations of great books to explore and connected to themes that they might be able to apply to their own lives. What are the books that have shaped you, that have connected you to who you are today? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I'm happy to say that Glory Edim's work is a part of, my response to that in terms of having books that I can rely on and connect to in this time that, we're all navigating some complexity. And I think that I'm all the better for it. So I really appreciate Glory's work. If you have not experienced Well-Read Black Girl, or if you would like to check out Gather Me, I am leaving links below to those works. I highly recommend that you follow her community and check out the reading lists and support both Glory's work as well as some of the great authors and recommendations that she shares. And so that's all that I have for now. Thanks for listening and happy reading.